You could deny that signature, Queen Vanya, but how are you going to deny the scorched ashes of this red diary burning right in front of you? Stop scrolling right now and do not look away from this screen for the next 30 seconds. Late last night, a leaked audio recording surfaced from deep inside the royal estate, sending shockwaves straight through the entire government. At 2 a.m., inside an intensive care hospital room, King Alden was played a secretly wiretapped phone call by Prince Ethan, and the sudden spike on his heart monitor set off alarms down the entire hallway. This isn't just about stolen funds. Prince Ethan had spent the last 3 months operating concealed cameras pointed directly at the palace's underground vault, and the raw footage handed to King at 5 a.m. showed Queen Vanya standing alongside a foreign operative, negotiating the private black market sale of the crown's most classified documents. Within minutes, King Alden ordered Queen Vanya's entire security detail disarmed on the spot. Armed military barricades have locked down the perimeter, officially turned the royal estate into an active high-security crime scene. But the real explosion happened when Prince Ethan stepped in front of the press and played a 12-second voice note, a clip that turned Queen Vanya's face ghost white the second it aired. You will not believe the terrifying words spoken in those 12 seconds. To truly understand how an ancient royal institution turned into an active crime scene overnight, we have to pull back the curtain on the bitter, decades-long power struggle that led up to this explosive night. For years, the public was fed a carefully manufactured fairy tale. Pictures of smiling royals, pristine state dinners, and seamless public unity were broadcast to millions across the globe. But behind those reinforced mahogany doors, away from the flashing cameras and news crews, the reality was a high-stakes war of attrition, a war that pitted traditional loyalty against cold, calculating ambition. At the center of this brewing storm stood King Alden, a monarch whose reign had been quietly destabilized by declining health and mounting political pressure. While the world believed the monarchy was operating smoothly, internal palace memos revealed that decision-making power was slowly, systematically being shifted away from the king's primary advisors. And who was quietly stepping into that vacuum? Queen Vanya. For the past 5 years, Queen Vanya worked tirelessly to position herself as the indispensable heart of the royal estate. To the public, she was the picture of grace and modern diplomacy. But behind the scenes, senior court staffers described an environment governed by fear, non-disclosure agreements, and absolute control. Vanya didn't just want influence. She wanted absolute leverage. She slowly, systematically replaced long-serving palace auditors, financial advisors, and security heads with personnel loyal strictly to her private office. Every financial ledger, every private trust, and every major estate transaction began passing to a secluded subcommittee that she personally oversaw. However, there was one major obstacle standing in her way: Crown Prince Ethan. Ethan, the rightful heir to the throne, had watched the silent coup unfold with growing suspicion. Having been trained in international law and state finance, Ethan knew the palace's traditional accounting structures inside and out. He noticed minor discrepancies as early as 18 months ago, small, unaccounted for transfers originating from royal charity trusts, strange shell corporations registered in offshore havens, and unexplained delays in official state audits. Whenever Ethan brought these irregularities to the Palace Council, his concerns were quietly dismissed or buried under layers of bureaucratic red tape. That was Queen Vanya's biggest mistake. She assumed Prince Ethan would stay quiet to protect the family's public image. She assumed his devotion to the crown would force him to sweep the rot under the rug. She was dead wrong. Realizing that the internal palace guard was compromised, Prince Ethan took a desperate, dangerous gamble. He went completely off the grid, hiring an independent private forensics team completely outside the jurisdiction of royal security. For over 9 months, this team worked in total secrecy, monitoring offshore financial routing, tracking encrypted communication logs, and placing surveillance on the palace's private vault access points. What Ethan's team uncovered was far worse than simple greed or mismanagement. It wasn't just about moving money into private accounts. The paper trail revealed a systematic plot to compromise state secrets, trade royal influence for foreign capital, and permanently sideline Prince Ethan from the line of succession before King Alden's health deteriorated any further. Tension reached a boiling point just 3 weeks ago during the annual state gala. Observers noted an icy, uncharacteristic silence between Prince Ethan and Queen Vanya. Body language experts on national news pointed out how Prince Ethan refused to make eye contact, while Queen Vanya appeared visibly tense, constantly checking her encrypted phone beneath the banquet table. What the public didn't know was that just hours before walking out onto that red carpet, Prince Ethan had received the finalized, unredacted 300-page forensic audit report. The trap was officially set. The stage was configured for an inevitable collision. The royal family wasn't just facing a public relations disaster. They were sitting on a volatile political bomb that was ticking down to its final seconds. Every official meeting was a facade. Every smile for the camera was a lie. And every insider knew that the moment King Alden discovered the truth, the monarchy would never be the same again. And that brings us right back to that fateful night in the hospital corridor, where Prince Ethan finally walked into King Alden's room with the black binder that started it all. The air inside St. Jude's private medical wing was heavy with a sterile scent of antiseptic and the low, rhythmic beep of King Alden's vitals monitor. It was 1:45 a.m. Outside, a violent rainstorm battered the bulletproof glass, masking the sudden arrival of 3 unmarked black SUVs that pulled silently into the hospital's subterranean bay. Prince Ethan stepped out, flanked not by royal guards, but by private security contractors carrying a heavy, biometric-locked titanium briefcase. He didn't announce his arrival. He didn't clear it with the Queen's press secretary. Ethan bypassed the main elevators entirely, taking the service stairs straight to the top floor, where 2 royal bodyguards stood guard outside the King's suite. Without uttering a single word, Ethan produced an emergency directive bearing his own sealed authority and had the guards relieved on the spot. Inside the dimly lit room, King Alden sat propped up in his bed, looking frail but sharp. "Ethan," the king rasped, his voice strained. "What is the meaning of this late-night breach?" Ethan didn't answer right away. He walked over to the heavy mahogany door, locked it from the inside, and drew the blinds. He set the titanium briefcase on the table over the king's bed, keyed in a 5-digit passcode, and laid out the contents. "Father," Ethan said, his voice trembling with a terrifying blend of rage and heartbreak, "we don't have until morning. The entire kingdom is being sold out from under you, and the person holding the gavel is sleeping in your estate." For the next 45 minutes, the room was dead silent except for the rustle of papers and the steady, accelerating pulse on the king's heart monitor. Page after page revealed a labyrinth of deception. Ethan laid out bank statements from primary offshore accounts in Zurich and Grand Cayman, accounts registered under a shell corporation known as Aegis Holdings. The primary sign-off on every wire transfer, totaling over $80 million diverted from public state heritage funds, was the unmistakable stylized signature of Queen Vanya. King Alden's hands began to shake violently. This is an accounting error, Ethan," the king stammered, his eyes wide in absolute denial. "Vanya she couldn't bypass the Crown Council. She didn't bypass them, Father. She paid them off." Ethan shouted, slapping a stack of encrypted chat transcripts onto the bed. "Look at the dates. Every time you were admitted for treatment over the last 2 years, millions vanished into these accounts. She wasn't preparing for your recovery. She was preparing for your demise." The emotional weight in the room shattered King Alden. The man who had ruled a nation with an iron fist for 30 years looked down at the evidence of his own wife's betrayal and broke into silent, gut-wrenching tears. The betrayal was absolute, cold, and calculated. Driven by pure fury, King Alden reached for the secure red landline on his bedside table, the direct line to the commander of the palace guard. "Initiate lockout protocol Delta immediately," the king commanded, his voice suddenly cold as ice. "Revoke Queen Vanya's security clearances. Freeze every asset under her name, and escort her to the North Wing under-house arrest until sunrise." It was a masterstroke of swift royal justice. Ethan had won. The conspiracy was exposed. The Queen was cornered, and the corrupt network was about to be dismantled. Or so they thought. Because just as the commander of the guard was about to execute the king's direct orders, a sharp, high-pitched notification chimed from Prince Ethan's secure phone. Ethan looked down at the screen, and the color instantly drained from his face. It was an automated alert from their private surveillance team stationed outside the palace's underground vault. Attached was a live video feed, recorded less than 4 minutes prior. The video didn't show Queen Vanya panicking in her bedroom. It showed her standing inside the vault, dressed in dark clothing, casually typing a master override code into the main vault terminal, a code that only King Alden was supposed to possess. But that wasn't the first twist. As the camera zoomed in, the vault door swung open, revealing that the primary steel safe, where the Crown's most sensitive classified military and state documents were kept, was already completely empty. Queen Vanya turned directly toward the hidden camera lens, smiled, and held up an encrypted satellite flash drive. She hadn't just taken the money. She had already wiped the master servers, stolen the state's most dangerous secrets, and realized Ethan was watching. Before Ethan could even shout for the guards, a broadcast notification flashed across every major news network in the country. Breaking news. Queen Vanya's legal team releases emergency statement claiming Crown Prince Ethan is attempting an illegal military coup against the king. The air inside the hospital room turned ice cold. Prince Ethan stared at his phone screen in complete shock as news alerts flooded in by the second. Queen Vanya hadn't just anticipated Ethan's move. She had launched a preemptive strike that turned the entire nation against him in a matter of minutes. Across social media, viral threads exploded with hashtag royal coup. Leaked, highly edited security footage began circulating on Twitter, conveniently showing Prince Ethan entering the hospital with armed private contractors. To the public, it didn't look like a son presenting evidence to his sick father. It looked like a desperate, hostile takeover. Major news outlets picked up the narrative instantly, broadcasting live commentary on whether Crown Prince Ethan was actively attempting to strip his father the throne. Inside the palace, absolute chaos broke out. The palace guard was instantly split down the middle. Half the security force remained loyal to the king's direct orders, while the other half, paid off by Vanya's inner circle, refused to enforce Lockout Protocol Delta, citing unclear orders amidst an active security threat. Queen Vanya was executing a public relations masterclass. While Ethan was trapped at the hospital trying to stabilize a hyperventilating King Alden, Vanya's legal team dropped a second massive bomb on the press. A signed, notarized royal decree claiming that King Alden was mentally incapacitated and that full regency control had been legally transferred to her. She's lying. She forged the medical signatures. Ethan roared, slamming his fist against the wall as he watched Vanya's chief advisor address a frantic crowd of reporters outside the palace gates. But just as Ethan prepared to release the raw, unedited 300-page financial dossier to counter a narrative, his chief forensics officer burst through the hospital door, pale and dripping with sweat. "Your Highness, stop," the officer panted, holding up a tablet. "Do not release those documents to the press. Look at the digital signature on the offshore transactions." Ethan snatched the tablet and zoomed in on the primary sign-off for Aegis Holdings, the multi-million-dollar offshore entity he thought Vanya created to steal state funds. His heart stopped. The digital signature wasn't Queen Vanya's. It was Prince Ethan's own deceased mother's private royal seal, a signature that had been officially retired 20 years ago, accessible by only one living person in the entire world. The stolen $80 million had been funneled to an offshore bank account for Vanya's personal greed. The funds had been systematically transferred over 2 decades into a hidden, deep state intelligence fund established by King Alden himself. Vanya hadn't been embezzling the crown's money. She was covering up King Alden's dark, illegal secret ops. And by threatening to expose the paper trail, Ethan was about to accidentally reveal that his own beloved father was the ultimate mastermind behind the corruption. Queen Vanya wasn't running from the law. She was protecting the king from his own son. Within 3 hours, the royal scandal detonated into a global digital war zone, obliterating every trending topic on the internet. On TikTok and X, hashtag royal betrayal hit over 2 billion impressions in record time. Live streams from citizen journalists parked outside the palace gates were pulling in millions of concurrent viewers, capturing every tense moment as armed military police established a double perimeter blockade around the compound. The public was wildly, fiercely divided. On one side, die-hard royal loyalists flooded the streets waving flags, accusing Prince Ethan of committing treason against his ailing father. Viral clips of Ethan entering the hospital with heavy private security were looped endlessly on major news channels, framed as a sinister, dark of night military coup. Ethan has gone rogue, declared one prominent political commentator live on national television. He's using fabricated evidence to stage an unconstitutional power grab, while the king is bedridden. On the other side, an army of internet sleuths and independent analysts began tearing through the leaked financial metadata. Reddit forums exploded with thousands of threads decoding the digital signatures. Cyberforensics creators posted viral videos breaking down the Aegis Holdings paper trail, pointing out terrifying anomalies in the timestamp logs. Look at the routing codes. One top tech influencer screamed to 3 million live viewers. This is an embezzlement scheme. This is a high-level government cover-up. And Prince Ethan just stumbled into a hornet's nest. The economic backlash was instantaneous and brutal. Wall Street and global markets reacted with sheer panic to the instability of the monarchy. The country's primary currency plunged by 3% in a single trading session, its sharpest drop in over 2 decades. Major international corporations, mega brands, and global charity foundations immediately froze their multi-million-dollar sponsorships with the royal estate, desperate to distance themselves from the radioactive controversy. Inside media newsrooms across the globe, news anchors were handed breaking updates in real time. We are receiving unconfirmed reports that 3 foreign embassies have quietly revoked their diplomatic ties with the palace inner cabinet. An anchor announced live on air, her voice trembling slightly. International leaders are calling for an emergency tribunal as whispers of illegal state surveillance and secret off-the-books slush funds continue to leak. The chaos was no longer contained within the palace walls. It had infected the entire nation. Comment sections were spiraling into absolute mob rule, with fanatical supporters demanding Prince Ethan's immediate arrest, while civil rights activists marched toward the Capitol demanding the complete abolition of the monarchy's legal immunity. Queen Vanya's PR machine thought they had muted the firestorm by turning the public against Ethan. But as the clock ticked close to dawn, a mysterious, unverified social media account with 0 followers posted a single, cryptic 10-second video clip that sent shockwaves straight through every newsroom in the world. The video showed a hidden audio recorder sitting on a mahogany table, playing a raspy, unmistakable voice saying, "If Ethan finds out what we did 20 years ago, tear the whole system down." That 10-second audio clip didn't just shatter the internet. It paralyzed the highest levels of national intelligence. The raspy voice on the tape belonged unmistakably to King Alden himself. The realization hit Prince Ethan like a freight train. His father wasn't an innocent victim of a palace coup, nor was he merely protecting a national security fund. Desperate for answers, Ethan rushed back into the ICU suite, only to find the room eerily empty. The medical monitors were flatlining in a steady, monotonous tone, but King Alden was nowhere to be seen. The heavy iron fire exit door at the back of the room swung open in the cold night draft. Ethan sprinted down the concrete service stairwell, his heart hammering against his ribs, until he burst out onto the rain-slicked roof helipad. Standing in a heavy downpour, illuminated by the flashing red beacons of an idling black military helicopter, were King Alden and Queen Vanya. They weren't arguing. They weren't divided. Queen Vanya was holding a secure satellite terminal, while King Alden, looking completely physically rejuvenated, stood calmly draped in a heavy wool overcoat, holding the master encrypted drive containing the nation's black budget secrets. "Father," Ethan screamed over the deafening roar of the helicopter blades. "What is this?" The entire country is rioting in the streets. King Alden turned slowly, a cold, calculated smile spreading across his face, a smile Ethan had never seen in his entire life. "My dear son," King Alden shouted back, his voice echoing with terrifying clarity. "You played your part brilliantly. You always were the most moral, dutiful, and predictable asset in this family." The final, horrifying truth clicked into place. There was no internal war between the king and the queen. The bitter public fallout, the leaked financial reports, the social media chaos, and the apparent financial betrayal. It was all an elaborate, masterfully orchestrated theater operation engineered by King Alden and Queen Vanya together. They had used Ethan's unquestionable integrity and public trust to trigger a total constitutional crisis. By making Ethan expose the secret funds, the king had successfully engineered a fake emergency that allowed him to declare absolute executive martial law, bypass Parliament, and dissolve the entire Royal Oversight Committee in one fell swoop. Ethan had an uncovered conspiracy. He had executed his father's final trap. The old monarchy is dead, Ethan, Queen Vanya said, stepping onto the helicopter ramp beside her husband. And by sunrise, the new regime takes total control. The helicopter lifted off into the stormy night sky, leaving Ethan standing alone on the rooftop as heavy military armored vehicles began rolling down the capital city streets below. Emergency sirens wailed in the distance as Ethan's phone chimed with a private, restricted text message from an unknown number. "Look in your coat pocket, Prince Ethan. The real war starts at 9 a.m. What an absolute nightmare. Is Prince Ethan going to fight back, or has King Alden completely outsmarted everyone? Drop your theories in the comments right now. Did you see that double cross coming, or were you totally blindsided? If your jaw hit the floor, hit that like button, subscribe, and smash the notification bell. You do not want to miss our next update dropping tomorrow, where we reveal what was hidden in Ethan's coat pocket at 9 a.m. Comment #TeamEthan or #TeamKing below, and I'll see you in the next episode.